Hey, we're back with La Vida Voices. I'm El Profe, Adrian Burgos Jr. We have a great guest today, Duane Rieder, who has spent much of the last 15 years, and even beyond that, working in building the Clemente Museum. It is an amazing place. If you get to Pittsburgh, get in touch with Duane Rieder, schedule a tour. It is an amazing place. We featured him recently on La Vida Voices, which comes out every Thursday. Duane, great to have you here. I hear you're quite busy these days.
Wow, we are. We're today's the last day of painting the mural of Roberto on the wall of the museum. We've been working on it for 8 days now, but it took 2 years to get it to this point. So it's been a big, huge success for us, and we've been getting media all over the world. People have been posting and reposting, and we've been blessed. We had about 12 of the Pirates come out here and tag the wall. So it's been a communal type thing where we've had all these kids, students, kids with special needs and everything coming out and tagging the wall and being a part of it. And it's been incredible.
Yeah, seeing the post on Instagram, and La Vida Baseball has also reposted some of those amazing images of, Pirates players, young kids in the community. It gives me chills seeing, anyone from a 3-year-old, and that his uniform is really everyone tagging the mural.
Yeah, yeah. So now what we're doing is we're putting the uniform with a wash over. So when you see the new photos, if you've seen anything from today, the uniform now is a little bit of a wash over top of the tags. So you kind of have to get up close. You have to get out of your car now and go find your tag. So it's pretty cool. Steve Blass of the Pirates, who was friends with Roberto, was the first person to tag it. And he put it on. He's been talking about it since he got here and nonstop talking about it. So it's been pretty awesome.
And just Francisco Cervelli, Jameson Talon, Joe Musgrove, so many of the Pirates have come out.
Yeah, they all just love Roberto and they love the museum, so they wanted to come out and be a part of it. We actually had a day where it was pizza and wine in the parking lot for the Pirates. They had a day off last Thursday, and about 12 of them came out and got in the action and painted and had some pizza and a little bit glass of wine and had a little party in the parking lot. And so, then we started the public on Friday, Saturday, Sunday. We had 3 days of festivities, but people were still showing up. Roberto Jr. came last night and tagged it, but he forgot RC3. So he's been today. And officially, the last person to tag it is going to be RC3. So it's pretty cool.
For fans who don't know, who follow us on La Vida Baseball, RC3 tell us.
Is Roberto Clemente Jr.'s first son, Roberto Clemente III. So he's 1 year old, and he looks exactly like Roberto Sr. So I can't wait to get some pictures of him this afternoon when he comes out here. And it'll be, like I say, the last official tag and then the artist is going to sign it this afternoon, and then it's finished.
Tell us who's the artist?
The artist is Kyle Holbrook. He's originally born and raised in Pittsburgh, but now he pretty much travels the world and does murals all over the world. And he just got back from Egypt and South Africa 2 weeks ago. He lives in Miami. He's painted Roberto on the wall in Miami. He did something for Art Basel last year, and he painted this big mural, and he put Clemente in there with a 21 in Pittsburgh on his, so people know that there's some Pittsburgh connection with him. And so he tries to sneak Clemente in on all his little paintings and stuff. So the guy is unbelievable. If you look him up, Kyle Holbrook, he's a wonderful human being, and he put his love. His uncle was Earl Francis, who played with Roberto on the '60 World Series team, who beat the Yankees. So he has a baseball connection, and his father grew up idolizing Roberto, and so he's got this strong bond with Roberto. So he came to us 2 years ago and said, I want to paint Clemente on the museum wall. And we were like, well, okay, if we can't afford to pay you, but if you could go secure a small grant where they would pay you to do it, because it's going to we had to rent a lift for 2 weeks and all. And so there was a little bit of expenses that he had to incur. So he got a grant to do it. It took about 2 years to get all the paperwork done. And then we started painting last week, and it's been amazing. All the news stations showed up. Everybody came out and photographed it, and it's blowing up right now. So it's pretty cool.
the Clemente Museum, I had the honor of getting one of those personal tours that you give. Is
Mhm.
such an amazing place. You've worked so hard in helping connect with the network of people who love Clemente and build that museum. What inspired the museum?
Well, I got to meet Roberto as a kid. I got an autograph from him in 1971, and then I was a baseball junkie, and I loved Roberto and those 60 the mid to late 60s Pirates with Matty Alou and Manny Mota and all those guys, and I just had a connection there. Well, then he dies in 1972, and I'm sad, and it's my first experience with death, and I didn't understand it, and I thought, since he died in the ocean in a plane crash, he's going to come swimming out of the ocean and be like Superman, but he never came back. But then in 1994, through my photography business, I'm a commercial photographer, I got asked to do a calendar on Roberto by Vera Clemente, and I became partners with her on this calendar. And I just wanted to be able to help her with photos. So I started helping her with all the photos that were in her house that were getting wet and moldy from hurricanes and tropical storms before that last one, 2 years ago. So we started doing the photos, and then in 2006, she asked me if I would do the Clemente family party for the All-Star game here in my firehouse. And I was honored to do it, and it gave me a chance to expand the archive into what is today now the museum. And so it was
And
just love of Roberto and love of Vera Clemente.
and amongst those photos, you found one that was absolutely amazing, and you helped Vera get it redone. And there's a print of it that hangs in the museum. Can you share what that
It's uh,
image is?
it's Roberto jumping up in the air in 1960 in spring training in Fort Myers, Florida, and the clouds made angel wings behind him. I don't know. I'm going to try to hold up. I have a brochure here that maybe. Let's see if I can get it. Maybe I don't know if it'll pick up on camera, but it's right here in our Clemente brochure.
Raise it a little bit.
And so
There we are.
there you are. So the angel wings, are in the clouds, and it's just this beautiful image, and it never been published or seen by anybody till we showed it to Vera for our party in 2006. And then when you start hearing the stories about that man, other than baseball stories, then you realize the human being that he was and what he was giving back to everybody, and how he ends up dying is that's how he was living his life. He was helping people nonstop. And so that's why his name keeps getting bigger and bigger, and this museum, needs to be here so we can keep the story going. But something even as important as a museum is we're doing an exhibit with Major League Baseball for the All-Star game in Cleveland. Since we're 2 hours away, we're driving to Cleveland in a few days to start building an exhibit that's going to be 2,000 square foot, and it's going to have the original angel wings image on the wall that's 6 foot tall. But we are going to have some beautiful stuff that nobody's ever seen before Clemente at the All-Star game in a warehouse. I think it's called the Red Room, and it's going to unveil on the 6th, and it's going to be up for 2 weeks. So come take a look at that if you're up there.
Wow, that sounds amazing. And one of the things I really appreciate about the work you do is that, like you mentioned before, you're a professional photographer, lifelong Pirates fan, and part of what you've helped the Clemente family do is recover some of those images that tell the story of his life.
Yeah, and wait till you see some of the, like I say, the new ones that nobody's ever seen before. We're going to have those out for the first time in public, and we built this timeline of Roberto's whole life, and some of the new images that we popped in there are just amazing. And we did it in Spanish and English.
Oh,
So
fantastic.
it's going to be pretty cool. I think it's going to be well received, and I'm going to be up there speaking on the 5th, 6th, and I believe the 7th, and so people can come to see this. And we're going to be there talking about Clemente and the museum and his importance, and so it should be pretty neat. So come see us at our booth for sure.
Okay, so you will be present at FanFest, is what you're saying?
Well, it's not in where the Fan Fest is going on. It's in another warehouse not far away. You'll be able to find it because we're in conjunction with the Negro League Museum, and there's going to be some artists there painting live, and it's going to be another little spin-off of FanFest.
Okay, definitely provide us the information. We at Vida Baseball will share it with our audience via our social handles. We did have a little bit of technical difficulties, and so Dwayne, I was just wondering, can you stay on with us a little longer today?
Sure, sure. I can go
Oh,
out the information on my phone, and I'll give you the where the party is.
fantastic. And so, you know, we talked about in La Vida Voices a bit of what inspired you and kind of how you fell in love and has with baseball and has to do with family. So, can you share with our audience how you became baseball fanatico?
Well, growing up in a little town here in northern Pennsylvania, all we could do as kids, we were poor kids, and all we could, just like Roberto was, and you can play baseball because it doesn't cost a lot of money. If you can find a baseball, hopefully not with Babe Ruth on it or Roberto Clemente, you can, that sport is just, an incredible sport. First of all, people that don't play it need to go try to experience it one time. My wife she never grew up playing baseball, and she doesn't understand the nuances. Game of baseball is like the most incredible game in the world. It's just that now kids are getting into soccer and hockey and lacrosse, and there's other games that you can run and have fun at. But there's something about baseball. There's a reason they call it America's pastime, because it's just an amazing game. So it got me, to get into the Pittsburgh Pirates. And back in those days, my whole childhood, it's Clemente, Clemente, Clemente. And like I say, Matty Alou and Manny Mota and Willie Stargell and those guys. And I fell in love with them, and that became my family. And so, the minute I got to go to Pittsburgh anytime to see a game, I would run to the rail and try to, shake someone's hand, or, to get an autograph from Roberto Clemente was like, I was trembling, It's the same way with kids today. Kids growing up that are idolizing Nelson Cruz and, the guys that you're talking about every day, Francisco Cervelli and Mike Trout and Mookie Betts, there's these great human beings that are playing the game, and all those guys I mentioned give back, so they're using their baseball platform to be able to bring awareness to that they even exist, so that they can talk about what they're doing, and trying to help people and give back. And so you see the circle of Clemente, he wanted to give back so much to poor kids that had it rough just like he did. And he left his mark on baseball. And if people just look him up, and see what he was doing and all the things that he, cared about, kids were on the top of the list. And we're bringing our some photos of Roberto in Puerto Rico teaching kids how to play baseball from 1962 that the world has never seen yet. So these the images that we're going to have at our exhibit have never been seen out there, and they just show exactly what Roberto was about. If you just point to him and say, if a photo's worth 1,000 words, there's going to be 4,000 words right there with those 4 photographs of him working with kids. And it's what he loved to do and what got him excited, and why he was so excited to be a great baseball player is then he could talk and people would listen. So
yeah, that's great. And just for those who are joining us, we're here with Duane Rieder from the Clemente Museum, Executive Director, founder of the museum. And we're talking about Roberto Clemente. It's the inspiration for the museum. We see Dwayne, he's sporting his 21 cap. Folks can go online and there you go, the shirt. You can get your own, you can find your way to support the museum. You can go to the museum. But one of the really interesting things that you shared with me when we were on the tour was that how the players are able to share and help support the museum. So can you talk a little bit about how that happens?
So I tell people that, we're multifaceted, or we have multi-layers here at the museum. So I'm a commercial photographer, and in my photography studio is still on the top floor of the museum. But below the museum is a winery where we make wine, and we sell the Clemente wine in the museum that helps raise money for the museum. But the players, when they come, it's not just a museum, right? There's these other layers where they'll come back and they'll repeat, and they'll come back and come back and come back. Like when Puig was with the Dodgers, I had the Dodgers 5 times. He brought the team bus one time with 25 guys on the bus, and they brought cameras and microphones, and he would help give the tour. He came so many times that he loved it. His father and grandfather loved Clemente. He played a little bit in Cuba. They played some winter ball in Cuba and stuff, and a little bit of spring training in Cuba. And so A lot of Cubans love Clemente. Dominicans love Clemente. Venezuelans love Clemente. So when they come to this museum, they're proud to show their family that they're at the Clemente Museum, and they can share that. And then they can also tell their kids. They'll Skype them in, and they'll show them on their phone, I'm in the Clemente Museum. But then we can go down under and we can have a little glass of wine and toast to Roberto, and then that gets them coming back again. And then they can buy a barrel of our wine here and join our club called the Clemente Society, and that gets those guys, staying like repeat customers, and so it really ties them in, and they become part of my family, and then help me raise money for the museum. So it's a pretty cool little thing that we designed here. That my board chair named Bob Meter came up with the idea to do that, to help support the museum, and it keeps the players coming back over and over and over again.
And it is the type of place, the museum, that one can come again and again and actually walk away appreciating another artifact, another bat, another. So talk to us about some of those artifacts that you really like to kind of spend a minute of your day. It's like, look at it one more time.
And that's where I'm really blessed, because I get to live here, right? And so every day I walk in and I see, one sad piece is, before we go on to some great baseball pieces, I have a propeller from the plane. And for me, it helps tell the story, complete the story, that yes, they did find the plane that Roberto died in. They did not find him, but they found the plane. And so a lot of people think they never found a plane. And so for me to have that propeller in a case here and now be a part of our story, Roberto's story, it just helps complete that story. But I get to look at gold gloves every day, a silver bat. We have one of the Louisville Slugger Silver Slugger Awards here, his first from 1961, and I get to look at that every day, and people are just like, wow, that piece it's mesmerizing. But now underneath that piece in a case is the Moman bat from his rookie year of 1955, and most people don't even know that he had a nickname Moman, or that it was on his bat for 5 years from rookie year through the 60 World Series. So we have a Moman bat here, which is a pretty new addition to the museum. But just all the photos and contracts and pieces of memorabilia, uniform pieces. We just acquired one of his undershirts. He wore a full-sleeved black wool undershirt, black and gray, underneath his pirate vest or pirate uniform his whole career, because he had a scar on his arm that he didn't want anybody to see. So the wool undershirt is a very important part of the story. And for us now, we just got it a couple of weeks ago, to have that in a case and on display. And we can talk about, it could be 102 degrees outside and probably 110 on a baseball field. He wore that wool undershirt every year of his career. So it's pretty cool that we have it. And ours is from 55, 56, the beginning of his career.
And as you were mentioning some of these artifacts, I was like, I didn't even see those when I was there. So I want to go back and enjoy it one more time. As the talk yesterday, I was in studio with the team in Chicago. It's like, we want to get there to see the museum, to enjoy and learn from the museum. You've had so many guests inside and outside of baseball. I gave you a question, and I think it was the hardest one for you to answer. It's like, who are some of the guests that you enjoyed? And you're like, here's 30 names.
Well, one that I hope was on the list was, Javi Baez. When he came, it was so memorable because all the other teammates that he was with that night, Rizzo and Hayward and John Jay and all those guys, they knew him being Puerto Rican, it meant so much for him to be there. And so he wanted to take a picture by this beautiful suit that we have of Roberto's, and he put his arm around it, and we were taking photos. But I got kind of emotional when he was getting emotional, and I let him put the jacket on because I sized him up, and he's about Roberto Clemente's size. Roberto was 5'10", 175, and I'm looking at Javi, and I was like, you could fit that jacket. And we put the jacket on him, and he got teary-eyed. So for one magical moment in the museum was when Javi Baez put the jacket of Roberto Clemente on, and it was just like this, like I say, it was just magical and emotional. And so that's one moment that I'll never forget. But I've been blessed to have people here, from Mario Lemieux to Steve Carell to Eddie Vedder of Pearl Jam, being the super Cubs fan. I had him here for 16 hours. You know,
Wow.
he called it heaven. Ed said, "Hey, Dwayne, can I come back to heaven for one more night?" You know, for that, me, he just called my place heaven. You know, well,
Yeah,
baseball, wine, photography, and I forgot to mention old firehouse. You know, a lot of guys
that's right.
firehouse, and I have fireman memorabilia and fireman history. Lou Gehrig sleeps here in this firehouse in 1927, which is the 27 Yankees, which is Murderers Row. And then Lou Gehrig being tied to the firehouse where Clemente Museum is, there's only two guys that bypass the 5-year waiting list to the Hall of Fame, and it's Gehrig and Clemente. So for that to happen, I mean, that's another one of these magical moments that we're finding out about this special place we're in.
Yeah,
So
yeah. The firehouse element's really cool because you're in the Lawrenceville section of Pittsburgh, and you converted a firehouse into this amazing place. And now I'm learning there's even more history underneath that story.
yeah, we keep unearthing all kinds of stuff. You know, the steel beams in this structure are 21 inches. That's a miracle. The firehouse was vacated on New Year's Eve of 1972 at 9 o'clock at night. I just found that out after building the museum in here and running this for 21 years. We find out that the building was vacated the moment Roberto's plane is crashing. And so maybe something happened there where the energy came here to this property, and now we have this going, and it's been just magical.
Yeah,
So
and another thing I appreciate about what you're saying, Dwayne, is how we really get a sense how universal the meaning of Clemente is. Because you mentioned in Rizzo, we know Cervelli and Talon and Musgrove, and Jason Hayward. It's not just Puerto Ricans and Latinos; it's all across baseball.
yeah, it's everybody. I mean, we get every walk of life too, from young kids to older people to women. Women come here, and you're like, well, they'll be like, I'm not just so you know, I'm not a big baseball fan. By the end of the tour, they're baseball fans. They want to go home and watch a documentary on Roberto Clemente and see him running and moving. And that's where one thing that we're lacking is we're very old fashioned here right now, but we're trying to acquire some grants to expand all the video, the footage of Roberto, and be able to show that in our presentation. Because when you see that man moving and how graceful he was, he could be constantly in a silhouette, and you know that that's Roberto Clemente, because he had a swagger about him. He had the way he moved was definitely unique. And so when people leave here, they're like, I'm a junkie. I'm a fan. I'm going to go look up Roberto. I'm going to read that David Marinus book that came out in 2006. They want to know more, which is pretty cool. And that helps us keep this story alive and keeps it growing and growing.
And you mentioned about this story, you've hosted charitable events there at the museum. And in your own way, the museum becomes a space for people to come in and extend Clemente's work.
Correct. We've had events here. We had a ALS, Lou Gehrig's disease fundraiser here, where Steve Blass, for the first time, another connection to Clemente and Lou Gehrig, Steve Blass reads the eulogy that he read at Clemente's memorial service on January 4th of 1973. And I just happened to, and this is totally a coincidence, this wasn't a setup, this is it. So he reads Lou Gehrig's eulogy for Roberto Clemente. The Yankees allowed it to happen, and they changed Lou to Roberto and Yankees to Pirates, and Steve Blass reads it and gets very emotional. And this is pretty much the last time he ever throws a strike. He'll tell you that by 73, he couldn't pitch anymore. And by 74, he's out of baseball. And it started with reading the eulogy at Roberto's memorial service in Puerto Rico. And so the Lou Gehrig fundraiser that we were doing, he reads it for the first time in 40 years and got very emotional. And we raised like $100,000 that night, and Steve helped us do it. And now we do these events here that we're raising money for other charities, because we want to be charitable like Roberto. We always say, what would Roberto do? Okay, he would say, we're doing this event, and we do that event, and it goes on to be very, a good thing for everybody. So it's like a win-win situation.
for those of us who's just joining, for those of you who are just joining, we're talking with Duane Rieder. He's from the Clemente Museum, and not just from it, he's executive curator, he's the founder, and you can see how much this museum means to him. One of the really neat things is not just Clemente artifacts there. There's a lot of players who come through who donate some of the materials of the game themselves to the museum. Share about that.
Well, we do. We're blessed to have Jack Marucci of Marucci Bat Company is a Pittsburgher, and he grew up idolizing Roberto Clemente. And I got to meet Jack through Sean Casey, because on Sean Casey's bat, it used to be, his model was RC21, and Sean Casey wore 21, but RC to me didn't make any sense. And I'm like, what's RC21? He's like, that's Roberto Clemente 21. I'm like, wow, why does Marucci put that on there? He's like, because he loves Clemente. And so I got to talk to Jack. Jack came to the museum, cried his eyes out, gave me some bats. He now makes us a Clemente style bat that's 36 inches long and 38 ounces. That's what Roberto was using in the 70s. And so he makes us these replica bats, and we give them to players to try to hit in a game. They usually chicken out because that's too heavy. And they hit them in batting practice. And so for doing that, then they send me a bat or leave me a bat behind. And so I've got this great bat collection now of about 100 major leaguers that want to have a bat hanging on the wall of the Clemente Museum. And so for me, that gives, when grandpa brings their grandson to the museum, they can see bats from Giancarlo Stanton and Mookie Betts and Big Papi, and they see those bats hanging on the wall. And then that gives them a little, they can tie it into some of the current players and the younger guys and people who've been through here. That's my sign-in book. And they can see them hanging there. And I don't sell those bats. I keep everything here, and the guys know that. So they want to be represented in the museum. So it's a pretty cool way to tie them back in.
Oh yeah, I love that part when we walked up some stairs and there was some bats all along there, and you're like, yeah, that's this guy's bat. I was like, wow, it's a great place.
What's neat is there's two Albert Pujols bats. He was my first Major League Tour current player. I get my first tour in the museum was Orlando Cepeda and Juan Marichal, which that was for me shaky. But then opening day of 2007, Albert Pujols came over and I gave him a tour. And he wanted to be in the museum, so we traded the Clemente bat for an Albert Pujols bat. But 2 years ago, the Angels finally came back to Pittsburgh, and Pujols came, and now I have two Pujols bats in there. And Pujols joined our club, and he's a member downstairs, and so it ties here again. It ties them in. He wanted to come to see if his bat was still hanging on the rack. So he's like, I got to get you a new one because he changed his style just a little bit. And he happens to be partners with Jack Marucci at Marucci Bat Company. So he loves the whole Marucci story. So it ties him in.
And Albert just came through St. Louis, received the welcome he deserved. And that's a beautiful story that some of our folks here at La Vida were able to enjoy. So I love you sharing that story that you got two Albert bats now.
And I talked to him on the phone last night, and he was emotional. I happened to watch a little TV, and I caught some media about him arriving in St. Louis and what they were doing, and he said he was moved. I mean, he literally paused for a few minutes when he was talking about it. He said, I didn't see that coming. He goes, those fans, to give me that welcome and that, just was amazing for him. It really was. Yeah. So that was pretty cool. Pretty cool.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what baseball is really about when you get down to the nitty gritty, and about players like Pujols, Clemente, the appreciation that fans have and that we're able to connect to their stories. So wonderful that the museum is able to have that connection for us to see and share.
Yeah. It's been very good for us. And like I say, I'm blessed. I'm blessed to have those guys come through here and want to be a part of this. And they're helping us keep Clemente's name, the flame burning. And so we appreciate all the players today.
Which reminds me, the other guy who was giving the hug to Pujols on the ball field was Yadier Molina, and you have a great photo of Yadi and some singer guy.
Yeah, some guy. I don't know that he has many followers, only 26 million followers. Daddy Yankee came here with Yadi for a sit down, and we had a little dinner and some wine, and we got to. give him a tour. And he being Puerto Rican, he knew enough about Clemente, but he doesn't know all the stories. And so I got to tell him a few that he'd never heard, and he was blown away. And he literally he blew us up that night. He put us on Instagram, and he sent us out to, people were knocking on the door 5 minutes later after he posted. What a following. And Yadi was emotional for when he got to hear the stories, and it was just like a really nice night with those guys. So here again, we're blessed that happened.
Yeah, and I think what you're pointing to is the museum is really something to share with other people as you go through it, because you get to observe how different parts touch the heart of different individuals. And that's a great story you're sharing about Yachty kind of observing Daddy Yankee, learning about the story, and him getting verklempt.
Yeah. And Yachty, he's a very quiet person. Most people, when you watch players on TV, you don't get to hear what the catchers are saying. You don't know, but Yachty, he's a very, very quiet, humble person. And it was cool to see him bring someone and kind of want to tell some stories and talk about the other times that he had been there, and the museum and the wine and the photography and all that. And so it's kind of neat to see. And like I was saying earlier about Puig, Puig would get so excited. He'd want to give the Clemente tour for me. And I'd be like, go ahead. I want to hear your version. And we're here in the city. The mayor of Pittsburgh, Bill Peduto, is a part of this and has a barrel and entertains here. And when he gives the tour, I cry. I mean, he grew up with the Clemente boys, playing wiffle ball with the Clemente boys out in Scott Township. And he gets so emotional, and then he starts talking. And so it becomes infectious. I mean, it's really, really cool to see how these stories are growing and how everybody comes here and they want to be the teller of the stories. So it's cool for me.
And one of the names we haven't mentioned yet, but he's been there quite often, and he's a friend of the Clementes, a friend of the Clemente Museum, is Manny Sangee.
Oh,
and so share a couple stories about Manny.
One of the best, and truly one of Roberto's best friends. He cries every time he comes here. He's getting up there in the years, but he called me yesterday. He's like, I want to come out. Come. The problem is he doesn't have a car now. He gave up his car. He's not driving, and so we got to go pick him up. So I send my wife down to grab him, throw him in the car, and bring him out here so he can be a part of this place. But he loves this place more than, if I had to pick one person on the planet that loves this museum the most, other than myself, it would be Manny. Him and Roberto were very close. He was there in Puerto Rico when the plane went down, and he could talk all day about Roberto, and he spent a lot of time with them on and off the field. So he talks to everybody. He wears a Clemente shirt every day of his life. He wears and sometimes the hat and the shirt, but usually he's got a Clemente shirt on, and he wants to spread the love of Roberto Clemente to everybody out there. So we've been blessed to become friends with Manny and have him be a part of this place.
And there's a kind of a connection that I drew in going through your museum, because you're a photographer. You trained under a well-known Pittsburgh photographer who took, I believe, the photo of the rippling Manny Sangee shirtless. It's just like, you see that man was solid.
Manny was ripped. Yeah, the photographer you're referring to was Les Banos. Many people think he was a Latino. He was actually Hungarian. And technically, that in those days, he was a foreigner. So they threw him in the wagon with Clemente and Manny Sangee, and he became best of friends with those guys as well. And he was a great photographer. And he got the shot of Clemente getting his famous photo as Clemente's 3,000th hit. But what I like is the photos behind the scenes and in the locker room. And the one you're talking about is Manny's just in his underwear, and he's ripped to the gills. He's got a 8-pack.
Yes.
And he is just all jacked up because he worked on a farm growing up as a kid, and he baled hay, and he rode this rowboat across this lake where his farm was to get groceries for his mom, and he cut firewood with an axe, and it built those muscles. And then he got into boxing. He wasn't a baseball player when the Pirates found him. He was a boxer, and so that's why he was in such great shape. And the Pirates saw him, and they're like, this guy's quite a specimen. We're going to have a catcher. And they made him probably the second best catcher in the National League. second to Johnny Bench, who just hit a lot of home runs. But Manny's arm, and Manny's nickname was the Road Runner. What catcher has a nickname like the Road Runner? Manny was fast. And so him and Roberto just became best friends, and he idolized the guy. And then when he passed, he's been spreading the word and the love of Roberto Clemente since the day the plane went down. And so we were blessed to have Manny here and a friend of the museum's.
And again, just the love one can sense when you talk to Manny about Roberto, but to know that his Manny Sangee's photos and some of his artifacts are there, it's such a perfect match.
It really is. We've got the 40-ounce bat, so he swung a 40-ouncer in the early 70s. I think just to show Roberto up, because Roberto was hitting 38 and 39 ounce, and Manny ordered some 40-ouncers. I think just to make, just to rub it in Roberto's wounds a little bit, and he swung a 40-ounce, 37.5-inch bat. And I let the players swing those bats when they come here, and the guys get all excited, and they say they want to get some of the mojo from Manny's bat and Roberto's bats, and some of those guys then go on a hitting tear. So it's been pretty cool to watch. It's been pretty neat.
So is that the secret to Josh Bell's season? Is that what you're telling me?
Well, I don't want to take any credit for that. You never know. Musgrove, the day we started the mural, Musgrove was the first current player to sign in. He tagged it with a peace sign and a JM. He got the win that night, and right underneath him, Stephen Baralt did a little squid, because his nickname's the Squid, and he scored the winning run, and we win 2-1, which is 21.
There you go.
The night that we started the mural. So you just don't know what's going to happen here. And so Javi Baez went on a hitting tear after putting the Clemente suit on. McNeil of the Mets, I let him swing the Clemente 38-ouncer, which is knobless. He switched to a knobless bat, and now he's one of the best hitters in the National League. So I'm just saying.
Yeah, it's a magical place, right?
It is. We think we got some magic going here. Maybe a little mojo.
So again, we've been talking with Duane Rieder. We featured him a couple of weeks back on La Vida Voices, sharing great stories about the Clemente Museum. Dwayne, give us a little bit of information about when they're in Pittsburgh, how to reach you, and how people can arrange a tour of the Clemente Museum.
The best way is to go to clementemuseum.com, .org, .net. You can go to any one of those. You can log in and we do guided tours here. So you have to either call or email. Soon you'll be able to book your own tour. We have a new website that we're ready to approve. It's going to get launched here any day. You'll be able to log in and actually book your own tour. Today you have to just send an email and talk with Joe Lee, who is my new director, who's been helping me, get the place up to snuff, I should say. And it's worth coming for a tour. It takes about an hour and a half. It'll be something that you'll tell your kids about, because the building itself is incredible, and it has all this mojo here. So it's worth go online or give us a call, and it's worth a trip. You'll definitely be very happy when you leave here.
Yeah, absolutely. It was the highlight of my visit to Pittsburgh. So much history, so much passion for the story of Clemente that's there, and the mission of the project is to keep his story alive, and it's doing a great job. That mural that you all are finishing up is a perfect example of that synergy between the past and the present.
And the mural, now a lot of people, we only had Clemente Museum and a 21 on the top of the building. Now that's our beacon, that's our marker, right? So a lot of people be like, we can't find you. And I'm like, well, it's a red brick firehouse on the main drag of Penn Avenue. And they're like, we can't find the firehouse. Well, now there's a 42-foot Clemente on the and what I'm just going to tell people, when you see Clemente, just park the car right in, that's our parking lot. And so you can't miss it. If you miss it,
you weren't looking.
You might want to go get new glasses or something.
That might be time to visit the optometrist. True, yeah. True. So you shared your story a little bit about what inspired. What are you looking forward next for the Clemente Museum?
Our next big project is an elevator. We're not ADA compliant, so our second floor, and there's some objects up there. So the first floor is all ADA, but we need an elevator to get people up to the second floor. And so we're raising money. So our fundraiser this September 16th, right before Clemente Day here at the museum, is to raise money for an elevator. And hopefully in 2019, we can raise the money. And in 2020, we could break ground, and maybe it'll be finished in 2021.
Yeah, there you go.
So that's our next big project. The parking lot was a big hurdle. Now the mural. We have acquired some stuff inside and building some new cases and stuff. So there's we're always doing something new. But the biggest project right now is an elevator. And I think we can accomplish that in the next year or so, which would be awesome. But, come out and check us out regardless, and you'll love it here, and, love to give you a tour.
Yeah, thanks so much, Dwayne, for your time and talking to us about the museum and about the Clemente story that you have, how you grew up with him, and now you're sharing him with all of us. It's been a wonderful hour, or well, almost an hour. We had some technical glitches at the beginning, but appreciate your patience. Again, where can people reach you?
ClementeMuseum.com. You can call the main number at 412-621-1268. Talk to Jolie. She's wonderful. She's booking tours every day. We're doing them every day now. We used to only do them maybe 3 or 4 days a week. We're doing tours now every day. We're doing sometimes 2 and 3 and 4 tours in a day. Takes about an hour and a half. It's worth a trip. We got a new parking lot outside. Park at the big Clemente, 42-footer. So come see us for sure.
Yeah, and that's new. When I was there a couple of years back, you were given a couple of guided tours scheduled, and now I hear you doing quite a bit more. So that's great.
And we're doing a lot more open houses. We're going to have Clemente's car here at the end of July. We're going to have the Charger back for another 2 weeks, and then we'll have an open house. We have an open house this Saturday and Sunday's open streets out front. And so we're going to be open all weekend long this weekend. And then come see us at the All-Star game. If anybody's in Cleveland, find this exhibit on Clemente and the Negro Leagues, and you're going to be blown away because we've got some pretty cool stuff going to Cleveland. So come see us.
All right. So Cleveland's the next stop in terms of visiting the extension of the Clemente Museum. But come to Pittsburgh, find the firehouse with the big mural of Clemente, and you can enjoy an incredible tour of the Clemente Museum. Dwayne, thanks again for joining us on La Vida Baseball Live. It's been fun chatting, but I hear you have more work to do.
Yes, we got to get outside. We're actually finishing the mural tonight because Roberto Jr. is coming down with RC3. We're going to get him on the mural. So I got to get back outside. But thanks for having me, and thank you for spreading the love of Clemente these last few years. And it was a pleasure meeting you a couple of years back. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Dwayne, and good luck as you continue finishing that mural and building that museum.
Over and out.